The massive ship hung in the darkness between stars like a sleeping giant. Inside its metal halls, Supreme Hierarch Kethmar studied the glowing display before him. His four eyes focused on the small blue dot that appeared on the screen. Around him, his officers waited in silence. "Tell me again about this system," Kethmar said. His voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered 12 star systems. Commander Vexhai stepped forward. His scaled skin gleamed under the ship's lights. "The system contains one star and several planets. The third planet shows signs of basic industrial activity. Our scouts detected mining operations and simple energy signatures." Kethmar nodded slowly. The Velhari had been expanding their territory for 300 years. They had conquered 47 different species during that time. Most surrendered after seeing just one Velhari warship. The few that tried to fight lasted only days. "How primitive are they?" asked another officer. "Very primitive, Supreme Hierarch. They appear to be using basic chemical rockets and simple nuclear energy. Their technology level suggests they discovered spaceflight only recently." Kethmar smiled. His sharp teeth caught the light. "Perfect. We need more workers for the mining colonies. How many ships should we send for the initial demonstration?" 3. "Dreadnoughts should be more than enough," Vexhai replied. "These creatures have never seen real military power. They will surrender immediately." Far across the galaxy, Commander Do-hyun sat at his monitoring station on the edge of the solar system. The Earth Defense Monitoring Station was a small outpost that most people forgot existed. Do-hyun had been stationed there for 2 years, watching empty space and filing boring reports. Today felt different. His sensors showed unusual energy readings from the outer system. The patterns looked like nothing he had seen before. Do-hyun checked his equipment twice, then checked it again. The readings remained the same. He opened a communication channel to Earth. "Command, this is Monitoring Station 7. I have unknown energy signatures approaching the outer system." The voice that answered sounded tired. "Station 7, please. Run a full diagnostic on your equipment. We have no scheduled traffic in your sector." "Sir, I have already run diagnostics. The readings are consistent and getting stronger. Something big is coming our way." There was a long pause. "Station 7, send your data to Fleet Command. They can review it when they have time." Do-hyun felt frustrated. He had been sending warnings for 3 days. Each time his superiors told him to check his equipment or wait for analysis, but the energy signatures kept getting stronger and closer. At Fleet Command on Earth, Admiral Park Sung-ho reviewed the morning reports. Most were routine. Supply. Shipments, training exercises, minor technical problems. Nothing that required his immediate attention. His aide, Captain Kim Jae-won, entered the office carrying a datapad. "Admiral, we keep getting sensor reports from Monitoring Station 7. The commander there claims unknown ships are approaching the system." Park looked up from his work. "What does technical analysis say?" "They think it's sensor ghosts or equipment malfunction. The readings don't match any known ship types." Park nodded and returned to his reports. Monitoring stations often had technical problems. The equipment was sensitive and sometimes created false readings. He had more important things to worry about. 3 days later, everything changed. Do-hyun was drinking coffee when his screens exploded with activity. 3 massive objects had appeared near Jupiter. They were huge, each one larger than Earth's biggest space station. The ships had simply materialized from nothing, as if they had been invisible. His hands shook as he activated the emergency communication system. "Command, this is Station 7. We have 3 unknown vessels in the outer system. They just appeared, near Jupiter. They are massive, massive unknown vessels." This time the response was immediate. "Station 7, confirm your report. Did you say 3 ships?" "Confirmed. 3 ships, each approximately 15 kilometers long. They appeared without warning. I had no sensor contact until they materialized." At Fleet Command, alarms began ringing throughout the building. "Admiral," Park rushed to the command center where dozens of officers were working at their stations. The main screen showed the Jupiter system with 3 red dots marking the unknown vessels. "Sir, we have visual confirmation," reported Captain Kim. The ships are definitely not human design. They appear to be using some kind of cloaking technology. Park stared at the screen. In his 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The ships were clearly advanced technology, far beyond human capabilities. Have they made any attempts to communicate? He asked. No, sir, they are maintaining position near Jupiter. Wait, we are receiving a transmission. The command center fell silent. After a moment, a strange voice filled the room. The words were translated by the computer, but the tone was cold and demanding. Primitive inhabitants of this system. I am Commander Jethry of the Velhari Confederation. Your world and all its resources now belong to the Velhari Empire. You will cease all military activities and prepare for occupation. Resistance is futile. You have one planetary rotation to surrender completely. The message ended. The command center remained silent for several seconds. Admiral Park felt anger building inside him. These aliens had entered human space without permission and were now demanding surrender. They clearly believed humans were weak and helpless. Captain Kim, open a communication channel to those ships. Channel open, sir. Park stepped forward, his voice clear and strong. This is Fleet Admiral Park Sung-ho of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human space without permission and threatened human civilians. You have 36 hours to withdraw from our system or face the consequences. Aboard the lead Velhari ship, Commander Jethry stared at his communication equipment in disbelief. The primitive creatures were refusing to surrender. They were actually threatening him. Did these animals just threaten us? Asked one of his officers. Jethry laughed. They have no idea what they are dealing with. Send this message to Supreme Hierarch Kethmar. Tell him the primitives refuse to surrender. Request permission to demonstrate our power. Back on the Velhari command ship, Supreme Hierarch Kethmar received the message with amusement. 47 species had surrendered to Velhari power. These humans would be no different. Send the Mercy Force, he ordered. 12 ships should be enough to show them reality. Once they see our true strength, they will beg for the chance to surrender. Admiral Park stood in the command center, knowing that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their new neighbors were not friendly. He activated Protocol 7, something that had not been used in over a century. Across human space, military bases that had been running with small crews suddenly came alive. Ships that had been in storage were activated. Weapon systems that had been dormant for decades powered up. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had threatened a species that had spent centuries preparing for exactly this moment. They had awakened humanity. Admiral Park Sung-ho stood before the massive display screen in the command center. Around him, hundreds of officers worked at their stations. The room buzzed with activity as Protocol 7 went into effect across human space. Status report, Park ordered. Captain Kim Jae-won checked his data pad. Sir, all military installations are responding to Protocol 7. Reserve fleets are powering up. The Mars shipyards have switched to emergency production mode. Park nodded. Protocol 7 had been created after the first interstellar colonies were established. Military planners had always known that one day, humanity might face a threat from space. They had spent decades preparing for this moment. How long until our fleets can assemble? Park asked. The nearest ships can reach Earth orbit in 18 hours. The full defensive fleet will be ready in 36 hours. Park smiled grimly. The aliens had given humanity 36 hours to surrender. They had no idea they were giving humanity time to prepare. 3 star systems away, Captain Lee Min-ho received the activation message aboard the UES Incheon. His heavy cruiser had been patrolling the trade routes near Alpha Centauri. The message was simple but carried enormous weight. All units, all fleets, all commands. War protocol is now active. Return to Sol system immediately. Maximum burn authorized. Lee had trained for this moment his entire career. Every officer in the human fleet had studied the theoretical tactics needed to fight an alien invasion. Now those theories would become reality. Helm, plot a course for Earth. Engineering, I want maximum power to the engines. We are going home to fight. His crew responded immediately. The Incheon turned toward Earth and accelerated to its maximum speed. Across human space, hundreds of other ships were doing the same thing. On the Velhari command ship, Supreme Hierarch Kethmar reviewed the reports from his scouts. The humans had increased their communication traffic, but that was normal when a species faced conquest. They were probably arguing about whether to surrender. "Have you selected the ships for the Mercy Force?" he asked Commander Vexai. "Yes, Supreme Hierarch. 12 of our finest warships under Commander Jethri. They will arrive at the human world in 2 days. The sight of our battle formation should convince the humans to surrender." Kethmar was pleased. 12 ships represented overwhelming force by galactic standards. Most species surrendered when they saw just one Velhari vessel. The humans would have no choice but to submit. On Earth, Director Kim So-young supervised the transformation of the Mars shipyards. The massive orbital construction facilities had been building civilian transports and cargo ships. Now they switched to warship production with frightening efficiency. "Director, all civilian construction has been suspended," reported her assistant. "The automated systems are now producing military vessels. The Jupiter foundries are manufacturing ammunition around the clock." Kim watched through the viewport as construction robots worked with mechanical precision. Humanity had built these facilities to be flexible. In peacetime, they made civilian ships. In wartime, they could produce a fleet. "How many ships can we build in the next 30 days? Kim asked. "At current production rates, approximately 200 warships of various classes." Kim was impressed despite herself. Humanity had been preparing for this day for generations. The preparation was finally paying off. On Luna, Private Han Woo-jin watched in amazement as weapons systems came online all around him. The moon's surface had looked peaceful for his entire 2-year posting. Now he could see the truth. Hidden beneath false terrain were railgun batteries, missile pods, and energy weapons. The entire lunar surface was one massive fortress. Similar installations were powering up on Mars, Europa, and dozens of other worlds and moons. "Private Han, report to Command Post 7, his sergeant ordered. Han ran across the lunar surface to his assigned position. Around him, other soldiers were manning weapons that had been hidden from view. The moon was bristling with firepower. "Sir, what are those weapons?" Han asked his sergeant. "Those are planetary defense cannons. Each one can destroy a ship 15 kilometers away. We have over 3,000 of them on Luna alone." Han felt a chill of excitement and fear. Humanity had been ready for war all along. 2 days later, Commander Jethri led his battle group toward the human homeworld. 12 Velhari warships traveled in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. "Commander, we are approaching the inner system," reported his navigation officer. "Good. Begin scanning for human military assets. I want to know what pathetic defenses they have prepared." The scanner officer worked for several minutes, then looked up with confusion on his face. "Sir, I am detecting multiple energy signatures throughout the system." "How many ships are we talking about?" Jethri asked. "Sir, I count over 300 vessels in defensive formation around the third planet. There are also numerous weapon platforms on the system's moons and asteroids." Jethri stared at his officer in disbelief. 300 ships? That is impossible. Our intelligence said these humans were primitives." "Sir, the energy readings are consistent. They have assembled a significant fleet." Jethri felt the first stirring of doubt. No primitive species could build 300 warships. Either their intelligence was wrong, or the humans were far more advanced than anyone had believed. "Open a communication channel to their fleet," he ordered. Admiral Park's voice filled the Velhari bridge. "This is Fleet Admiral Park Sung-ho of the Earth Defense Force. You are trespassing in human space. Turn around and leave immediately, or we will consider you a hostile force." Jethri tried to project confidence in his reply. "Human Admiral, I command 12 of the finest warships in the Velhari fleet. Your primitive vessels cannot hope to match our technology. Surrender now and avoid unnecessary bloodshed." Park's response chilled every Velhari officer on the bridge. "Commander, you wanted to see human military capability. You brought 12 ships into our home system and threatened our people. Now you will learn what that means." Suddenly, the human fleet began moving. 300 ships arranged themselves in a complex formation that surrounded the Velhari battle group. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier vessels. Weapon systems across the solar system powered up. Jethry realized with growing horror that his 12 ships were completely surrounded. The humans had not panicked or tried to flee. They had prepared a trap. "Sir, we are receiving targeting locks from multiple human vessels," his weapons officer reported. "How many locks?" "Over 1,000, sir." Jethry tried to contact Supreme Hierarch Kethmar, but the humans were jamming all long-range communications. His battle group was isolated and surrounded by a fleet 3 times larger than his own. Admiral Park's final message reached the Velhari ships on all frequencies. "You came to our home to threaten our families. You expected us to surrender without a fight. You were wrong about humanity. We have been preparing for this day for over 2 centuries. Now you will discover what happens when someone threatens a species that was born to survive." The human fleet began its attack, and Jethry realized that the Velhari had made a terrible miscalculation. These humans were not primitives. They were warriors who had been waiting for exactly this moment. The Battle of Sol was about to begin. The Battle of Sol began at exactly 1430 Earth Standard Time. Commander Jethry watched in horror as his 12 warships faced the full might of humanity's defensive fleet. Captain Choi Hae-won commanded the destroyer UES Busan. Her ship was smaller than the massive Velhari vessels, but she had trained for this moment her entire career. Around her, 3 other human destroyers moved in perfect coordination. "Target the lead Velhari ship," she ordered. "All weapons, prepare to fire." The human ships opened fire simultaneously. Railgun rounds traveled at incredible speed, slamming into Velhari shields with devastating force. The aliens had never faced kinetic weapons of this power. Lieutenant Kang Tai-ho led his fighter squadron against the Velhari formation. His small craft darted between the massive alien ships, finding weak spots in their defenses. Behind him, 50 other fighters followed his lead. "This is Red Leader to all fighters. Attack pattern Delta. Hit their weapon systems and engines." The human fighters moved like a swarm of angry insects. They were too small and fast for the Velhari weapons to track effectively. Each fighter carried missiles designed specifically for this type of combat. Jethry tried to coordinate his fleet's response, but the humans were fighting unlike any enemy he had ever faced. Every human ship seemed to know exactly where every other human ship would be. Their coordination was perfect. "Return fire," he ordered. "All ships, target the largest human vessels." The Velhari energy weapons struck several human ships, but the damage was less than expected. Human shields held against the alien weapons, and damaged ships immediately fell back while others moved forward to take their place. Major General Yang Ji-hoon observed the battle from the Lunar Command Center. Around him, tactical officers tracked every ship and weapon in the solar system. The humans were fighting at only 30% of their actual capacity. "General, should we activate the planetary defense systems?" asked his aide. "Not yet. Let the fleet handle this. I want to see what these aliens can really do before we show them our full strength." The battle continued for 47 minutes. One by one, Velhari ships were disabled or destroyed. Their advanced shields and energy weapons proved inadequate against human tactics that combined overwhelming firepower with perfect coordination. Captain Lee Min-ho aboard the UES Incheon led a flanking attack that cut off the Velhari retreat. His heavy cruiser, along with 6 others, formed a wall of steel and fire that trapped the remaining alien vessels. "This is Admiral Park to all Velhari ships," came the broadcast. "Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed." 3 Velhari ships attempted to escape. They activated their fastest engines and tried to break through the human formation. Lieutenant Colonel Park So-jin commanded the missile batteries on Europa. Her weapons reached across millions of kilometers to strike the fleeing ships. "Target destroyed," she reported. "No survivors detected." The remaining Velhari ships surrendered. Commander Jethry's flagship was badly damaged, its hull cracked and its weapons offline. He broadcast his surrender on all frequencies. "We yield. We surrender. Please stop the attack." The human fleet ceased fire immediately. Rescue ships moved forward to collect Velhari survivors. Admiral Park had given strict orders that prisoners were to be treated with dignity and care. On the Velhari command ship, Supreme Hierarch Kethmar received the reports from the battle with growing disbelief. His mercy force had been completely destroyed in less than an hour. How is this possible? He demanded. 12 of our finest warships destroyed by primitives. Commander Vexhai studied the battle data with growing fear. Supreme Hierarch, the humans were not fighting with their full strength. Our sensors detected thousands of additional ships and weapons that were not used in the battle. What do you mean, not used? They defeated our entire battle group with only a fraction of their available forces. Their industrial capacity appears to be many times larger than our intelligence suggested. Kethmar felt cold fear creeping through his body. The Velhari had conquered 47 species over 3 centuries. They had never encountered resistance like this. Dr. Song Yu-jin, head of the Human Strategic Assessment Division, presented her analysis to Admiral Park and the military leadership. Her report would change everything. Based on captured Velhari technology and tactical data, I can confirm that they have never fought a true military conflict. Their conquests have been against peaceful species with minimal defenses. What does that mean for us? Asked Admiral Park. It means they have no concept of total war. They expect quick victory followed by surrender. They have never faced an enemy that was fully prepared for conflict. Admiral Park studied the strategic displays showing human military assets across 3 star systems. Hidden bases, secret shipyards, weapons stockpiles that had been building for decades. The aliens had awakened something they could not understand. Dr. Song, what do you recommend? We should prepare for escalation. When the Velhari leadership learns of this defeat, they will send everything they have. We need to be ready for their full military response. Park nodded grimly. The Battle of Saul had been just the beginning. The real war was about to start. Commander, Jethry, now a prisoner aboard a human medical ship, was being treated for his injuries. The human doctors worked to save his life with the same dedication they showed their own wounded. Why are you helping me? He asked Dr. Kim Hyo-jin, the human physician treating his wounds. Because you are no longer our enemy, she replied. You are a prisoner of war, and you will be treated according to our laws. Jethry was confused. The Velhari never showed mercy to defeated enemies. What will happen to me? You will be questioned about your military capabilities, then held in comfortable conditions until the war ends. After that, you will be free to return to your people. This was beyond Jethry's understanding. Humans were treating their defeated enemies with kindness. What kind of species fought with such terrible efficiency, then showed mercy to those who had tried to destroy them? The answer would reshape his entire understanding of what humanity truly was. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the UES Seoul, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Intelligence reports were coming in from across Velhari space. The enemy was preparing something massive in response to their defeat at Seoul. Admiral, we are detecting major fleet movements in Velhari territory, reported his intelligence officer. It appears they are assembling their entire military for a massive assault. Park was not surprised. He had expected this escalation. The Velhari could not accept defeat, so they would try to overwhelm humanity with sheer numbers. Signal all human fleets. Prepare for Phase 2 of our defensive plan. Across human space, military commanders received their new orders. The gloves were coming off. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what a Deathworld species could really do when pushed to its limits. The real war was about to begin. Supreme Hierarch Kethmar paced around the command center of his flagship. The humiliating defeat at Seoul had shaken the entire Velhari Confederation. For the first time in 3 centuries, their military had been decisively beaten. How many ships do we have available? He demanded. Commander Vexhai consulted his data displays. We can assemble 2,000 warships, Supreme Hierarch. This represents the combined military might of all 12 Velhari worlds. 2,000 ships, Kethmar repeated. The number was staggering. Never in galactic history had such a large fleet been assembled for a single campaign. That should be more than enough to crush these humans. The Velhari had never needed more than 50 ships to conquer any species. 2,000 represented overwhelming force by any conceivable standard. Surely even the humans could not stand against such might. Send a message to the human leadership, Kethmar ordered. Tell them, they face the full power of the Velhari Empire. They have one final chance to surrender before we sterilize every world they inhabit. The message was broadcast across human space on all communication frequencies. The threat was clear and absolute. Admiral Park received the ultimatum while standing in the command center of the UES Sol. Around him, his staff worked calmly despite the magnitude of the threat they faced. 2,000 ships, mused Captain Kim Jae-won. That is a substantial force. Park nodded. It is exactly what we expected. The Velhari cannot accept defeat, so they are committing everything they have. Sir, should we send a response to their ultimatum? Park thought for a moment, then stepped forward to the communication console. His response would be heard not just by the Velhari, but by every species monitoring the conflict. This is Fleet Admiral Park Sung-ho of the Earth Defense Force. You have made your choice to escalate this conflict. Now witness the full might of humanity unleashed. The message was transmitted across the galaxy. Within hours, every major species had intercepted and analyzed it. The humans were not backing down despite facing impossible odds. Commander Ryu De-young led the Human Advance Reconnaissance Force. Her squadron of fast scout ships had been monitoring Velhari fleet movements for weeks. What she discovered changed everything. Command, this is Recon 7. I have visual confirmation of the Velhari Grand Fleet. 2,000 vessels in formation, approaching our outer territories. Understood, Recon 7. Maintain observation and report any changes. Ryu continued her surveillance, but something was bothering her. The Velhari fleet was impressive, but human sensor readings were detecting something else. Other ships were moving through hyperspace, heading toward the same destination. Command, I am detecting additional fleet movements. Unknown ships emerging from hyperspace in multiple locations. Back at Fleet Command, Admiral Park smiled as the reports came in. The secret that other species had never learned about humanity was finally being revealed. For over 2 centuries, humans had been building military infrastructure not because they were at war, but because they understood that war was inevitable in a universe full of potential threats. Every colony world had shipyards. Every asteroid belt had hidden bases. Every trade route had concealed weapons depots. Signal all fleets, Park ordered. Operation Thunderstorm is now active. Across human space, 3 massive battle fleets began moving toward the convergence point. The first solar fleet comprised 800 heavy warships built in the Sol system. The Colonial Expeditionary Force contained 600 vessels constructed in the outer colonies. Most terrifying of all was the Reserve Strategic Command. Over 1,000 ships that had been held in hidden bases throughout human space, waiting for exactly this moment. These vessels had been built in secret, maintained in perfect condition, and crewed by humanity's most experienced officers. Captain Oh Soo-min commanded one of the newest human carrier vessels. Her ship carried over 200 fighters, each piloted by officers who had trained for this scenario since childhood. Launch all squadrons, she ordered. Fighter Command, you are authorized for full combat operations. Lieutenant Nam Do-woo led his fighter wing toward the approaching battle. Around him, thousands of other small craft formed up in perfect formations. Every pilot had studied the theoretical tactics needed to fight a numerically superior alien force. The difference was that for humans, these were no longer theoretical exercises. This was the real thing. The Velhari Grand Fleet arrived at the designated battle zone expecting to find a small human force desperately trying to defend their territory. Instead, they discovered something that defied all military logic. Fleet. Commander, reported the Velhari sensor officer. I am detecting massive human fleet movements, multiple battle groups approaching from different directions. Fleet Commander Zethmore studied the tactical displays with growing alarm. How many ships are we facing? Sir, preliminary counts suggest over 2,000 human vessels. The numbers are still increasing as more ships arrive. That is impossible. No species has that kind of military capacity. But the evidence was right there on their sensors. The humans were not just matching Velhari numbers, they were exceeding them. Ship after ship emerged from hyperspace, forming into battle formations with mechanical precision. Admiral Park broadcast a message to both fleets as the forces converged. Today, two philosophies of warfare meet in battle. The Velhari believe in conquest through intimidation. They have never faced true resistance. Humanity believes in preparation, coordination, and the absolute defense of our people. Today, the galaxy will learn which philosophy is stronger. Captain Shin Bo-Ra commanded the heavy cruiser UES Daegu. Her orders were simple: prevent any Velhari ships from escaping the battle zone. Around her, hundreds of other vessels took up blocking positions. The Velhari found themselves facing not just superior numbers, but an enemy that had been preparing for this exact type of conflict for generations. Every human officer had studied multi-fleet coordination tactics. Every crew had drilled for large-scale fleet engagements. "This is impossible," muttered Fleet Commander Zethmore. How did primitives build such a massive military force? The answer was simple but terrifying. Humans were not primitives. They were a Deathworld species that had spent centuries preparing for the day when someone would threaten their existence. That day had finally arrived. The Battle of Kepler's Edge was about to begin, and it would reshape the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Supreme Hierarch Kethmar, monitoring the situation from his command ship, felt fear grip his hearts as the true scope of human military might became clear. "What have we awakened?" he whispered. The Battle of Kepler's Edge began with a silence that stretched across the void. Two massive fleets faced each other in the darkness between stars. The Velhari Grand Fleet, 2,000 strong, arranged in their traditional battle formation. The human armada, even larger, spread across space like an iron net. Fleet Commander Zethmore gave the order to attack. Velhari energy weapons lit up the darkness as 2,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. It should have been overwhelming. It should have crushed any opposition. Instead, the human fleet responded with coordination that seemed impossible for any species to achieve. Captain Shin Bo-Ra commanded the heavy cruiser UES Daegu from the center of the human formation. Around her, hundreds of ships moved as one organism. Each vessel knew exactly where every other vessel would be at every moment. "All ships, execute Maneuver 7, she commanded. The human fleet split into multiple formations, each one moving to surround different parts of the Velhari force. What had seemed like a single large fleet suddenly became dozens of smaller groups, each with specific targets and objectives. Admiral John Kyung-soo led the second battle group in a flanking maneuver that cut off the Velhari retreat route. His ships moved with mechanical precision, creating a perfect encirclement while maintaining devastating firepower. The Velhari found themselves trapped in a sphere of human warships. Every direction they turned, they faced more enemies. Their traditional battle tactics, which had worked against 47 other species, proved useless against human strategic thinking. "How are they coordinating so many ships?" demanded Fleet Commander Zethmore. His tactical officer could only shake his head. "Sir, their communication efficiency is beyond our understanding. Every ship acts as if it shares a single mind." The truth was simpler than the Velhari could comprehend. Human officers had trained for this exact scenario for over a century. Every fleet exercise, every simulation, every tactical drill had prepared them for large-scale coordination against numerical superior forces. Lieutenant Colonel Kim Min-soo commanded the missile batteries on 3 different asteroids. His weapons reached across millions of kilometers to strike Velhari ships with pinpoint accuracy. Behind him, thousands of other officers operated similar systems throughout the battle zone. "Target the Velhari command ships," he ordered. "Priority: fire on vessels showing flag signals." Human missiles streaked across space, each one guided by artificial intelligence that had been designed specifically for fleet combat. The Velhari shields, designed to stop energy weapons, proved less effective against kinetic projectiles moving at incredible speeds. One by one, Velhari command ships were disabled or destroyed. Their fleet coordination began to break down as Communication links were severed and command structures collapsed. Supreme Hierarch Kethmar watched the battle from his flagship with growing horror. His grand fleet, the pride of the Velhari military, was being systematically destroyed by human tactics that defied all military logic. Signal retreat, he ordered desperately. All ships withdraw to hyperspace. But the human fleet had anticipated this move. Admiral Park's forces had positioned themselves to block every escape route. The Velhari were trapped in a killing zone, with no way out. Captain Li Jiun commanded the fast attack squadron that had been sent ahead through alternate hyperspace routes. Her ships were already waiting at the Velhari home system when the survivors of the Grand Fleet tried to retreat. This is strike leader to all units. Execute Operation Doorstop. No Velhari ships are to reach their territory. The few Velhari vessels that managed to escape the main battle found human forces waiting for them at every possible destination. There was no safe harbor, no friendly port, no refuge from the relentless human pursuit. What truly broke Velhari morale was not just the military defeat, but the realization that humanity fought with a commitment they had never encountered. Other species sought quick victory or negotiated peace when faced with superior force. Humans demonstrated something far more terrifying: absolute determination to achieve complete victory. Dr. Kim Hyojin, analyzing captured Velhari data aboard the human medical ship, made a discovery that changed the entire nature of the conflict. She rushed to Admiral Park with her findings. "Admiral, you need to see this intelligence data immediately." Park studied the captured files with growing anger. "Are you certain this information is accurate?" "Yes, sir. The Velhari Confederation has been planning systematic genocide across this entire galactic sector. They intended to enslave or eliminate every species within 50 light-years of their territory. The revelation transformed what had begun as a defensive action into something far more significant. Humanity had not just been attacked randomly. They had stumbled into stopping a campaign that would have affected dozens of civilizations. Admiral Park called together his senior commanders. "Ladies and gentlemen, the nature of our mission has changed. We are no longer simply defending humanity. We are fighting to prevent galactic genocide." This revelation hardened human resolve even further. The Velhari were not just another aggressive species. They were a threat to the survival of multiple civilizations. Captain Park Minseo led the human boarding parties that captured intact Velhari vessels. Inside the alien ships, she discovered something that shocked even experienced military officers. "Admiral, you need to see these prisoner files," she reported. "The Velhari have detailed records of planned extermination campaigns against 17 different species." The evidence was overwhelming. The Velhari Confederation was not just an aggressive empire. It was a machine designed for systematic elimination of other sentient life. Supreme Hierarch Kethmar, his flagship burning around him, made one final desperate attempt to negotiate. "Please, we surrender. We yield everything. End this destruction, Admiral." Park's response echoed across every communication frequency in the battle zone. "You declared war on humanity when you thought we were weak. You planned genocide against peaceful species throughout this region. Wars end when we decide they end, not when aggressors grow tired of losing." The human fleet continued its methodical destruction of Velhari military assets. Every ship, every base, every weapons platform was systematically eliminated. The Velhari military, which had terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries, was being completely dismantled. Commander Ryu Da-young, now leading the pursuit forces, reported back to Fleet Command with updates that demonstrated the scope of human planning. "Admiral, our advance forces have secured all major Velhari shipyards and military installations. Intelligence teams are cataloging evidence of their planned genocide campaigns." "What is the status of civilian populations?" Park asked. "Sir, our forces are providing humanitarian aid to all species previously subjugated by the Velhari. We are also protecting Velhari civilians from retaliation." This was perhaps the most shocking aspect of human warfare to other galactic species. Humanity fought with devastating efficiency against military targets, but immediately switched to humanitarian assistance for civilian populations. The final phase of the Battle of Kepler's Edge was not a battle at all. It was a systematic rescue operation as human forces liberated dozens of species that had been enslaved by the Velhari Empire. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the UES Sol as the last Velhari military stronghold surrendered. Around him, his officers worked to coordinate relief efforts across multiple star systems. "Sir, we have received surrender offers from all remaining Velhari military commanders," reported Captain Kim Jae-won. "Accept their surrenders. Begin immediate humanitarian operations in all liberated territories." The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity did something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of establishing their own empire to replace the Velhari, they began the systematic liberation of every oppressed species they encountered. The message was clear to every civilization monitoring the conflict. Humanity was not interested in conquest. They were interested in justice, and they possessed the military capability to enforce that justice across the entire galaxy. The final phase of the war was not a battle. It was the largest liberation operation in galactic history. Human fleets appeared simultaneously at every major Velhari stronghold, demonstrating a level of strategic coordination that redefined what other species thought was possible. Colonel Park Min-seo stood on the surface of Velhari Prime, the capital world of the fallen empire. Around her, human peacekeeping forces maintained order while providing aid to millions of beings who had lived under Velhari oppression. "Colonel, the civilian population is requesting to meet with human leadership," reported her aide. Park was surprised. "They want to meet with us? I expected them to be afraid." "No, ma'am, they are grateful. It appears the Velhari government was as brutal to their own people as they were to conquered species." This revelation changed everything Park thought she knew about the enemy. The Velhari Confederation had not just oppressed other species. It had oppressed its own citizens, ruling through fear and violence for centuries. In the former Velhari government buildings, human intelligence officers discovered files that documented systematic abuse spanning generations. The Velhari leadership had treated their own people as expendable resources, no different from conquered slaves. Dr. Song Yu-jin led the team analyzing captured Velhari records. What they found painted a picture of a civilization that had lost its way centuries ago, becoming a machine dedicated only to expansion and domination. "Admiral Park, you need to see these population records," she reported via secure communication. "The Velhari civilians have been living under conditions that violate every principle of civilized behavior." Park reviewed the data with growing sadness and anger. The Velhari people had been victims of their own government's brutality. Liberation was not just necessary for conquered species, but for the Velhari themselves. Meanwhile, across the former Velhari territories, human forces were making contact with dozens of species that had been enslaved or threatened with extinction. The diversity of life that had been suppressed was remarkable. Captain Song Hye-jin commanded the liberation forces in the Altarian system. Her ships had arrived to find a species on the verge of extinction, their world strip-mined and their population reduced to slave labor. "Captain, the Altarian leadership wishes to thank humanity for our intervention," reported her communications officer. "Tell them we are honored to help. What do they need most urgently?" "Medical supplies, food, and protection from Velhari loyalist forces still operating in this sector." Song immediately dispatched aid ships and established defensive positions around the Altarian homeworld. This pattern was repeated across dozens of star systems as humanity systematically restored freedom to oppressed populations. The galactic community watched these events with amazement and growing respect. Humanity possessed the military power to conquer half the galaxy, but instead they were using that power to restore justice and freedom. Ambassador Choi Dong-ho addressed the Galactic Council for the first time in human history. The council chamber, which had been dominated by Velhari representatives for decades, now hosted delegates from species that had been thought extinct. "Honored representatives," Choi began, "humanity comes before this council not as conquerors, but as advocates for universal principles that should govern all spacefaring civilizations." The assembly listened in absolute silence as he outlined humanity's vision for the future. "We propose the establishment of universal species sovereignty, mutual defense agreements among peaceful civilizations, and the creation of joint peacekeeping forces to prevent future genocidal campaigns. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 43 species voted to establish the new framework that very day. The Galactic Council, which had been a powerless body under Velhari dominance, suddenly became the foundation for a new era of interstellar cooperation. Admiral Park Sung-ho found himself in an unexpected role. Instead of planning military campaigns, he was coordinating the largest humanitarian operation in galactic history. Human ships carried food, medical supplies, and reconstruction equipment to dozens of worlds. "Admiral, we have a request from the Alterian government," reported Captain Kim Jae-won. "They want to join our mutual defense pact." "What about the other liberated species?" "Sir, we have received similar requests from 37 different civilizations. They all want to be part of whatever system we are creating." Park was humbled by the responsibility. Humanity had never sought to rule other species, but they found themselves at the center of a growing alliance of civilizations, committed to mutual protection and peaceful development. The most remarkable transformation occurred among the Velhari themselves. Former Commander Jethri, who had witnessed the full scope of human military capability during the Battle of Sol, became an advocate for the new galactic order. "My people have been living under tyranny for so long that we forgot what freedom meant," he told the newly formed Velhari Provisional Government. "The humans have shown us that strength should be used to protect, not to oppress." Jethri worked tirelessly to help rebuild Velhari society, based on principles of justice and cooperation. His knowledge of Velhari military assets proved invaluable in ensuring that no weapons of mass destruction remained hidden. Dr. Kim Hyo-jin established medical programs that brought healing to populations that had suffered under Velhari rule for generations. Her teams worked alongside alien medical professionals, sharing knowledge and techniques that benefited everyone. "The remarkable thing," she reported to Earth, "is how quickly different species can work together when they are not living in fear. The diversity of medical knowledge among these civilizations is extraordinary." 6 months after the end of the war, Captain Han Nari stood on the bridge of a new class of human vessel. The UES Explorer was designed for research and diplomacy rather than warfare. Her crew included officers from 12 different species, all working together to investigate reports of unknown civilizations in the outer galactic regions. "Captain, we are receiving a signal from an unexplored star system," reported her communications officer, a former Velhari navigator named Vethai, who had joined the human fleet after the liberation. "What kind of signal?" "It appears to be a distress call from a species we have never encountered." Nari smiled. This was exactly the kind of mission humanity had hoped to pursue once the galaxy was at peace. "Set course for the signal. Let's see who needs our help." The Terran Defense Compact had grown to include over 60 species within its first year. The human military, rather than being disbanded after victory, had become the backbone of a galactic peacekeeping force dedicated to protecting smaller civilizations from aggressive empires. Admiral Park, now serving as Supreme Commander of the Compact Defense Forces, addressed the annual assembly of member species. "1 year ago, humanity faced a choice between submission and resistance. We chose resistance not just for ourselves, but for the principles that should govern all civilized beings. Today, we stand together as proof that diversity makes us stronger, that cooperation achieves more than conquest, and that justice is worth fighting for." The assembly erupted in applause from dozens of different species, each one free because humanity had refused to surrender when faced with impossible odds. Supreme Hierarch Kethmar, now serving a life sentence for crimes against multiple species, made one final observation from his prison cell. His words were recorded for historical purposes and distributed throughout the galaxy. "We thought we were conquering primitives. Instead, we awakened guardians. Humanity has shown the galaxy what true strength looks like. It is not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to protect. We made the greatest mistake in galactic history when we threatened them. The universe had tested humanity's resolve and learned too late that some tests should never be conducted." In the Outer Rim territories where the war had begun, Commander Do-hyun still operated his monitoring station. But now, instead of watching for threats, he tracked the peaceful movements of trade ships from dozens of species, all traveling safely under the protection of the Terran Defense Compact. The galaxy had found its guardians at last.